USIM is our main powerhouse of the evening. Well, today there have been a number of statements going back and forth. Zelensky to Lukashenko, Lukashenko to Zelensky, some military man to Putin who is threatening a military rebellion all over Russia. And all the other wonderful statements, including the promise that after the war is over, certain Ukrainian figures cannot be touched, because those who try will be dealt with. Some guys who have lost it, who came back from the war. These aren't my words, but those of a so-called barbershop military man. Anyway, let's watch all of this. Before we start, I ask you to subscribe to the channel if you haven't already and watch the video until the end. So let's see what's going on here. First, well, let's take a look at Lukashenko, because it's known about Zelensky's statement to Lukashenko. Zelensky gave an ultimatum. If you don't remove the radio relays, the radio relays, the radio relays. Like, we'll remove them ourselves within 7 days, and it seems that both representatives, Ukrainian and Belarusian, have dealt with this. Plus, Lukashenko also reproached Gryzlov, Putin's special representative from the Russian Federation, for trying to drag Belarus into the war. And he did the same regarding Zelensky, like saying the same thing about him, like Belarus doesn't want to be dragged into the war, and that's the right thing.
Just so you know.
This is a meeting between representatives of the Russian Federation and the president of Belarus, Lukashenko, and they're discussing the war. That's what I'm saying.
Not just to you and Boris Vyacheslavovich. Representatives of Zelensky were here recently, right in this spot. I told them directly, I said to the guys, pass this on to your president. If he thinks he can talk to us like that and drag us into the war, he needs to understand that the nature of the war will change instantly.
Well, I guess what they're talking about is that Belarus now has nuclear weapons provided by Russia, and if something happens, the war could really change. That's probably what it's about. Otherwise, I don't understand. By the way, Belarus doesn't have that many troops, as far as I know, about 60,000, so Belarus probably can't really threaten Ukraine with some kind of massive attack, but with nukes, that's a different story.
This war would be completely different. By the way, we got a response. The presidents, they understand this. So let's make a deal, guys.
He said that Zelensky seemed to understand everything and wouldn't do anything. And now he wants to make a deal with Putin's representatives, with Gryzlov and the other one.
We need to negotiate seriously. There's no need to make a fuss, no need to shout, no need to try to punch someone in the face like Russians do, and so on. Well, let's do it in a civilized way, understanding what Russia is and what we are. There is also an understanding. We don't need to get involved in a war. And don't try to push us into thinking that Boris Vyacheslavovich is organizing the process to drag us into a war.
Boris Vyacheslavovich, that's Gryzlov, he's the representative of the Russian Federation, and apparently the discussion was about Belarus participating in the war against Ukraine on the side of the Russian Federation. That's my guess, but judging by Lukashenko's rather tough response, that's really the case. And Lukashenko actually commands respect here, because respect, I mean deference, if you will, an old word. And he doesn't want his country to be dragged into the war, because he's already seen what problems and troubles there are now in Russia. And in Ukraine, the problems are even greater now. In short, it's a mess everywhere. In Belarus, it's not exactly peaceful, but I have acquaintances there who say that compared to other countries, everything is just fine. You can't say that everything is perfect and everyone is happy, but compared to what's happening around, it's actually not bad.
Listen. The president of Russia and I have discussed this topic 1,000 times. How can you fight against Ukrainians here when on the other side it's mostly territorial defense forces? Are we supposed to shoot these mechanics, milkmaids, and working guys who don't want to fight with Belarusians? We don't want to fight with Ukrainians either. Our position, Andrei, is peaceful, but we'll always support Russia. Vadim is important to Alexander Igorevich, though here the fight is different. We are with Russia. We understand what could happen if the West gets involved here again and wins.
Well, Lukashenko is on familiar terms with the West and with Trump himself, meaning he made several deals, again using Trump's terminology, that were quite beneficial for his side. That's from Lukashenko's perspective. That's why Lukashenko knows how to play both sides, sitting on 3 chairs at once, with Russia, with Ukraine, and with the US in this case. I'm just sure that he'll find common ground with Europe as well. At the very least, the US has already partially and significantly lifted sanctions from Belarus, which makes things much easier. In Lebanon, again, it's like a repeat of Belarus in terms of social and economic global processes. There can't be any problems here. So what? Well, good job, Lukashenko. What else can I say? This is the first statement I wanted to show you. It was made today, and, well, without showing it, it just wouldn't be a proper segment. You have to agree. Second, unexpectedly, some military man, maybe you know him, I'm not really an expert on Russian circles, especially all those war correspondents. A certain military man stated that Putin needs to be informed about the terrible state of the army. It's not terrible because there are no weapons, but the soldiers are being mistreated, according to this military man. And if he isn't heard, he promises to start an armed rebellion. Honestly, I don't know how this person, clearly from a small town, is going to start this rebellion. But maybe he's some kind of super famous hero who can, with a snap of his fingers like Prigozhin, just go and do all that. But let's listen. His address has already gotten about 4 million views, so clearly people are watching him and it's obviously interesting to them.
June 25, 2026. Today, a representative of the Servant of the People Party came. Yesterday, I met with people who are high-ranking officials from the Ministry of Defense and security agencies.
Honestly, I don't get why people visit him. Visiting Prigozhin is one thing, but it's different with a war correspondent or whoever he is. Please comment who this person is. It's the first time I've seen him. Don't judge me. I just don't get involved in all these military things. And now there are statements going around that even Putin himself supposedly visited him.
And they sent a message to Vladimir Vladimirovich Putin, saying that if he doesn't grant a live audience where I can tell the whole truth about what's happening in our country right now. At this moment, dozens, hundreds, thousands of our soldiers are sitting in dungeons.
These are pits, so they lower violators into these pits. Well, this is obviously illegal. It absolutely contradicts all humanistic and general moral principles. But this is practiced in armies. And the Ukrainian army, right now, there's an investigation into this Skelya regiment, where prisoners, well, Russian-speaking citizens were tortured and abused. Just reading about it makes your hair stand on end. Well, obviously, this soldier says that there are similar cases on the Russian side. He says thousands of soldiers.
Turned in by their commanders, they sit, rot, and are subjected to torture and abuse by the so-called Gestapo. For refusing to carry out stupid suicidal orders, for refusing to give up their financial resources.
This is extortion happening in the army. Well, I know in Ukraine, if you don't want to go straight to the front line, in some units they might tell you, well, give a little, like half your salary or even all of it, and you can just stay put, not go anywhere. Or we'll sometimes send you to less dangerous spots. And in some places, whether you go or not, it doesn't matter, you still have to pay. And again, this is what my friends who serve have told me, not something I just read somewhere. And obviously similar things are practiced in Russia too.
Subtitles Dima Torzak, and in the end, they erase them, declare them missing in action. Vladimir Vladimirovich, please pay attention to this. Invite me to see you. The consequences will be very serious. If I don't come to the Kremlin soon and speak live next to you, the army will turn its weapons against the Kremlin. I'm just delivering the message. That's all I have.
Well, that's how it is. So who is this person again? Why is he able to start an armed uprising? Or who is he connected with? That's interesting, but there was this direct threat to Putin that if he doesn't deal with the current situation, the army will turn its weapons towards, we have to understand, the Kremlin. Whether to believe this or not is up to you. Be sure to write in the comments what you think about this. Now let's listen from another perspective. There's one character here. Like this. I'll show you now. This one is Ukrainian. He's always sitting in studios, even though he grew a beard to seem more, well, he's a well-known freak, basically. And here he talks about how when the soldiers return after the war is over, how they'll start going to the ambassadors of other countries. If someone doesn't speak well about certain Ukrainian officials, that's it. But this is more like a threat at the level of some local thug, like the street punks we used to have. It's pretty much the same thing.
It doesn't feel right to make claims against Ukraine after the war. I wouldn't like it even if someone did. Well, listen, the guys will come back from the war with a bit of a troubled mindset.
I discussed this about a year and a half ago in one of my videos. What will happen to Ukraine after the war? Most likely nothing good will come. The borders probably won't open and the economy will be at rock bottom. They'll stop propping it up and hundreds of thousands of soldiers will return. Among them, there are a huge number of ordinary normal people, as Lukashenko put it. Dairy maids, tractor drivers, entrepreneurs, scientists, and representatives of other professions, builders. But there are also 1 or 2%. Some are those whose minds have really been affected. And then there are those who already had issues before they went. And these people are simply dangerous for ordinary society. Because, well, just imagine, after Afghanistan, people told me stories. And when I was still a teenager, I saw for myself what some Afghans did to a couple of my acquaintances. They worked as teachers there too. Well, I can't say it was all bad, but there were moments you had to keep in mind when dealing with them, so to speak. And recently too, I showed a video where some AFU soldier was walking down the street drunk and smashing other people's cars just because, like, what are you doing here? And he smashed the car of some woman, not a man whom he might have considered a draft dodger. In general, all of this comes through in what this character is saying.
If a Hungarian says something, it won't be the Ukrainian ambassador who responds, but a Ukrainian Magyar, which could end badly.
So it's a direct threat to the representative of another state, the leader of another state that is friendly to Ukraine. Not in the sense that the European Union is not letting them in. That's one thing, I mean the Hungarian he's talking about. But Hungary accepted many Ukrainians. Hungary gave them the opportunity to work. Hungary gave them benefits at first, and even now no one is being kicked out. Suddenly some character who has never served a single day starts talking about, what if you do this and what if we fly in? Well, that's how things are.
We are a nation living in a wartime reality. Over the past few years, we have decided...
We understand. Well, a wartime mindset is not the same as a criminal one. Those are different things. War, yes, there are all sorts of bad things happening, but it's not banditry. And that's important to understand. Well, people with that level of development, obviously for them it's like if you have a weapon, you can do whatever you want. That's self-evident.
The solution to any international problem is war. It's drones, it's offensives, it's assaults. And so I wonder, why are our Western partners, friends, and allies provoking us? Do they prefer Ukrainian soldiers over migrant workers? And we don't...
So this person is now threatening absolutely everyone. And he says if anything happens, it won't be migrant workers coming from Ukraine, but rather the military will deal with representatives of other countries. Well, honestly, I don't know how far off the rails a person has to go to say things like that, but here he is saying it. Well...
We're not to blame for this. You just need to understand that Ukraine no longer exists in a way that everyone can kick it around. There are no more Ukrainians who can be humiliated, beaten, or considered victims. They don't exist in Ukraine, and they won't. They won't exist in the world either.
Well, obviously, it seems like he means that instead there will only be some kind of bandits with unstable minds who will react with weapons to some minor incidents. There, if someone is called a fool, someone else immediately appears with a weapon. This is apparently the kind of post-war future for Ukraine, and honestly, all of this doesn't lead to any good thoughts. Well, and here there's also another video of everyone's favorite Olena Zelenska. She's complaining about her hard life. Can you imagine that? Well, it's tough for her to live. Well, yeah.
I wish this war would end as soon as possible. First of all, we didn't think it would last this long, like it already has. And every day we dream. She didn't think
that it would last this long. By the way, in 2022, she spoke with the same sorrowful face and talked about how, in her opinion, any Ukrainian is capable of surviving without, I think, electricity, without water, for as long as it takes for Ukraine to win. And now she says, oh, we didn't know, that's how it is.
We're thinking that the end is near, that this will all be over soon. This is the worst period of my life. I think everyone in the country can relate to me right now.
She got confused. Here, I think, she says, I feel like every Ukrainian, and she forgot what she wanted to say, because she doesn't know what an ordinary Ukrainian usually thinks. A person who doesn't work at all, who basically does nothing. He doesn't understand what's happening to ordinary Ukrainians. And ordinary Ukrainians are going through hell on earth, simply put. And from the previous character, you can understand what's happening. Again, with all those investigations involving that Skelya regiment and everyone else, well, it's just some kind of nightmare. But for her, everything is just hard. It's just hard for a person to live. Probably boring, too.
Wait a moment. Does anyone claim to be completely happy right now, even if their life is great and the war hasn't affected them personally? We all live under the pressure that...
It's hard. You have to go to some events with the powerful people of this world, but it's hard for a person. You have to go. There's the sun or the wind or even rain, God forbid. Someone could hold the umbrella wrong behind you, letting a drop hit your hair. That's awful. How can you live like that? You just have to feel sorry for them.
We live in Vienna. We didn't want this.
Of course, we never wanted it, but still, every Ukrainian can live for many years in wartime conditions so that Ukraine can win. Again, according to Zelensky. But now it turns out that's not quite the case. Well, that's how things are at the moment. This video won't contain footage of powerful leaders because, well, I've already shown you those. There are a lot of these videos. So let's think together about what might come out of all this. It leads to all sorts of unpleasant thoughts. The fact is, nothing good was said except for Lukashenko. Lukashenko seems like the only one with any common sense. Well, at least judging by the conversation, by this speech. Among all these speakers, all those who are shouting, war until the end, borders there, or this is a special military operation, denazification. Peskov spoke recently and said that the task of denazification has already been demilitarized. Demilitarization, or rather, has already been completed because supposedly Ukraine has no weapons, but apparently they actually do. They have many times more than they did at the beginning. Not to mention those, as that character said, crazy soldiers who will keep fighting no matter what. And they're near the Russian border too. In short, problems, 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 even without mentioning the fuel crisis. Well, subscribe to the channel. Bye, everyone.
So what's stopping us from launching drones at Minsk and their other cities? It's much closer than where we're already launching them in Russia. For example, they've reached St. Petersburg, the Urals, Kazan, and maybe even Astrakhan. So what is Minsk? There are a few, well, Brovdi already said that there are 500 targets on the territory of Belarus that we can hit. But if we take out a couple dozen enterprises and we can do it with our missiles, or soon with drones that should finally appear, then the economy of Belarus will simply come to a halt. Well, Lukashenko will very obviously regret that he started this.